which is going to be put up for grabs this weekend during 10 games of play. Hypoc, this middle group right now is honestly one of the strongest 16s I've seen in a minute. Like, it is going to be brutally difficult, I feel like, to get out of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just had Sonic's phase and T1 all slot into this. I mean, TSM just ahead of that also. But just looking at it as well, today we're going to have potentially DA, Petrichor Road, and Na'Vi slot into that. So it's only going to get tougher, right? I mean, some of these teams have been heating up. Yes, so I say middling performances in terms of weekly survival, in terms of qualification. But I mean, FaZe have been playing fantastically consistently. And, you know, in terms of macro, they've been pretty much bang on. But I mean, for the last week or so, it's obviously been the chicken dinner that's eluded them.
Yeah, let's talk about FaZe. I mean, they're on there, and it's a struggle for me, guys, because, you know, I love FaZe. I've been watching FaZe since G-Core back in the day, right? And they've always been a legend within PUBG, and their macro, or their micro, I should say, like their individual fighting skill, still super on point. Uba is winning these crazy 3-1s. Fuzzface is holding down compounds by himself, but they still have no money. What is going on with FaZe? Because I'm not used to this. I'm uncomfortable with FaZe not starting the week in the first 16.
So, I mean, FaZe is really just playing their game, which is, you know, accumulating a lot of kills, spreading themselves around the map and just doing a lot of damage. The problem is that's not getting them to the point where the money is. And that's really what it all comes down to. And especially now that they bottomed out to the 16 for the first time and they didn't make the last weekly finals, I mean, that obviously hurt them as well. But I mean, 8C has been playing out of his mind, I think. I mean, Uba's always really good. And then you still have Fuzz, who's a staple of that team as well. So, I mean, it's tough. I think FaZe is still playing fine, and we do know that they are slow to start.
Bro, they've all been to weekly finals every single week. This marks the third week, Godspeed, that those teams advance. There is a lot of talk. You know, you go to, let's say, Oath's Twitter as an example, and they'll say things like, it just doesn't seem fair. Like, the circle determines who gets to go. But we are seeing a trend develop of the top teams seem to be going every week.
I mean, Oath of all teams should be super happy about circles.
Right. Yeah.
What happened yesterday. But it's sure it can be frustrating, especially when, you know, you're rotating multiple times, you're getting in all these crazy fights, and then you're seeing a team just kind of chill in a compound and get to move on to the weekly finals. I get that. I totally understand it. I'm sure Pac does as well as former players, but at the same time, you know, that's also the difficulty and kind of what this format alludes to is adaptation. It's rough. We've been saying it over and over again, but that's just the format. And then it also leads to some really exciting moments and teams, you know, pulling through. So that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
And I think yesterday... Go ahead.
Go on. No, I was going to say on top of that as well, just when talking about Oath, I mean, we talk about teams that generally are kind of that feast or famine. I mean, Liquid historically, Oath is kind of similar to that in terms of North America last year, right? Quite often we saw like back-to-back 0-point games and then come back and string 2 or 3 wins together. So it's teams like that I guess struggle to find their footing in terms of consistency. But I think Oath, as time goes on, will maybe crack that and find their foot a bit better.
Agreed.
You know, and there was talk, I think yesterday a little bit when I sort of went out and watched the pro players, like to sort of check out their Twitter sphere and see what their social media says. And they talked a lot about even the fans to a certain extent, teams that won yesterday had compounds or had circles that moved towards them. But we also saw, I think, at least 2 games where in order for one of those teams to advance, they had to wipe everyone left on the map. I mean, there were at least 2 games where there were a 4, a 2, and a 2, and the teams of 2
Daytrade
got 6 kills to finish out, like Daytrade in particular. So that is one of those things that I think lends some credence to PUBG is a game, right, Godspeed, where just because you get the circle doesn't mean you win.
No, you inevitably should win the games you're given, but that's not the case. I mean, I think TSM comes to mind when we'll talk about that 2v4 when they lost against Afrika for the last weekly final spot that put them into the bottom 16 in the first place. I mean, I'm not trying to harp on it, but that's an example of, you know, you are in a situation where you should win, and unfortunately they weren't able to pull it out. Now, regardless of that, I think TSM has played incredibly consistent, and I'm hoping that they can bang out a win here to go to this weekly finals. But yeah, you're not always guaranteed to win just because you have the circle, but it inevitably will be easier for you.
So we have a full North American desk, so let's do what everybody expects us to do and talk a little bit about North America. Oath got through yesterday, Hypoc, but the other teams, particularly Sonics and STK, that I think if you look at just ticket voting, are significantly more popular among the crowd or expected to perform better, haven't looked so strong yet. I mean, Sonics, granted, only had 2 games, I think, so far, or 1 game. But STK, you know, they were not even unnoticeable yesterday. What's going on with these top North American teams?
I mean, it's tough for SDK, and again, we're going to do the NA thing. I'm about to, I guess, upset a lot of NA viewers that are probably watching, but SDK again struggling to find that consistency. Right, they have these games where if they do lose one early and they go for that kind of damage control, which we saw it time and time again in terms of bad circles. Millie Island, a good one when you think about North American PCS last year. Yesterday was a perfect example there, where obviously Kurt was the last man standing. It's kind of coming down to that damage control doesn't really work in the weekly survival, right? When we see them get to the weekly finals, yes, they performed as more in terms of expectations, right? In what we would hope to see from SDK. I think they need to do a little more kind of reading in terms of how other teams are playing this, because they don't seem to deter away from their usual game plan too often, and I think a few times that's been their demise.
Godspeed, do you feel like a lot of people are talking about the meta for the survival series is sort of go middle, grab compound, and then it's changing up for the weekly final? Have you noticed differences between how teams are specifically playing the survival series and the weekly final, or do you think that's just sort of, you know, a bit of talk and bluster, but not the reality of like teams are just playing for middle during the survival?
I think the teams that have been making it through consistently have really just been playing their game. I don't think they've really changed too much. I think they've been making good decisions, which have led to good rotations, good position in the circle, team fights, etc. But I mean, even the same thing we can talk about SDK. As Pac said, there's been times where they've kind of been floundering, but every single team fight that SDK gets in, I mean, they are doing a lot of damage to the teams that are taking them out. So it's not like they're just, you know, they're just going out without a fight. I mean, they're putting it on. They're putting their hands on other teams. The problem is just, you know, they're just getting taken out by either one team after losing 2 or just, you know, getting third party. Regardless, I think SDK has been really consistent this event overall, and I expect they should qualify. If not today, then hopefully tomorrow.
And PUBG is one of those games, right, Hypoc, that one decision, one lapse of judgment in an uncomfortable moment can cost you your game. I think we saw SDK crash one of the compounds yesterday after that big fight between 4 a.m. and I forgot who it was. That, you know, Luke 12, I think you pointed out, Godspeed, he just went too wide on the crash and they got completely wiped out. And it was sort of a brain fart that equals a loss. So let me ask you guys this. I very rarely get to have a desk with 2 retired pros. We'll say retired. I'm not going to say ex-pros, because I firmly believe that if either of you wanted to come out of retirement and start a North American super team, you could do it. Fingers crossed. That said,
you made me blush.
You've both been
you've
both been on teams that have been very successful. You've had the chance to try out shot calling. You've had the chance to work with this. How would you approach a series like this, the sort of weekly survival, the weekly finals, the length of this event? You know, think about your peak team when you had the ultimate roster. What would you have like set forward as a strategy with your guys? How do you approach something like this from a pro's perspective?
I mean, for me, if we're, I mean, SDK is a great example, right? So we've seen them kind of demonstrate how effective they are. It comes back to that Zaki play. I was thinking about that rotation camp that was set up for FaZe, and again, that's something we saw time and time again in an APCS last year, where it was kind of like bad circle, bad scenario. Let's damage control, get some points on the board, go for it, right? Coming back to the weekly survival, what I think one of the big changes I want to see is kind of teams. It sounds weird to say, but like pinning more on kind of those early plays, right? Usually we wouldn't see a massive investment to gamble on getting a compound circle 1, circle 2. For me, it's more about kind of taking that, I guess, easier fight, if you want to put it in that bracket earlier on, and kind of taking the, that will pay dividends through the mid game, right? We're seeing a lot of kind of desperation plays through circle 3 and 4, which yes, it's very circle dependent. We could say that a good play, a good rotation in circle 1 is not going to look great in circle 3, right? But some of those teams, once they make that kind of transition to thinking that way, I think potentially we're going to see a lot more teams with 4 up. Because there's been a lot of scrappy rotation kills and teams losing members early on that again, it is going to cost you in the long run, especially if you're trying to survive through to the end game.
Dustin, I obviously want to give you a chance to answer that.
I mean, I agree.
How
with
would
Pac
you approach this?
I agree with Pac on top of the fact that it just seems like a lot of teams are hesitant to also fight early. Like Pac was saying, taking that early fight, especially if you notice that a team is split, I think it's worth fighting for that split, especially if that position is very juicy in the circle, as opposed to avoiding it to see what the other half of that split does, or vice versa. On top of that, I think it's really just important as far as an event like this, where it's incredibly stressful and it can be very volatile, for a mentality and a reset when it comes to bad games. I mean, it's going to happen. You're obviously not going to win every game that even you would like to, but coming out of those bad games, it's very important to have just a complete reset and go into the next game mental with just really good attitude and really good comms. I mean, how many times have we seen a team on tilt, they fall, and then they just plummet down on the leaderboards after a bad game? So I think it's very important as well.
I just want to touch on the fact that all 3 of us, by the way, sporting the exact same quarantine beard, looking great, gentlemen. And for those of you in chat, if you're like, everybody's got the same beard, don't worry. Poro is coming, and I got to be honest, his beard is nuts. You're going to love it. So check that out in just a few minutes, as he will be a caster along with Toby relatively soon. You guys brought up this idea of fighting early is risky, and I think that did get outlined yesterday very clearly, Hypoc. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the VP game. They got 12 kills in a win. Infantry got 19 kills. But the reality is they fought so hard to get to the final 3 that they were down to 2 players at that point, whereas VP purposefully rotated around combat with the intention of having 4 up at the end. And it seems like that's becoming a reality. How hard is it, though, as you look at Infantry right now, to bounce back from that? Can you imagine, Hypoc, a 19-kill 3rd place, and then you got to go do it again?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about momentum in PUBG. Obviously, with the weekly survival, it's a little bit different. As far as I'm concerned, with the example we've given, they're a team that have been playing incredibly consistently. Sorry, it's too early. I can't get my words out just yet. But that there is kind of like it's when they'll eventually crack a game, right? It's not really a question of if they're going to. It's when for me.
T1, there's another one, Godspeed, a team that just entered the fray yesterday. A lot of high hopes. I mean, Star-Lord, Aqua, Adder, Dangche, these are like storied names. And why aren't they rich yet? They're still at 0.
There's hesitation. I mean, a lot of times these guys will have a good position, but they won't push out, or they'll wait too long on the edge to fight. And that's really just been killing them. I mean, we've obviously seen what they're capable of, but they're just not showing it. There is something going on within that roster where the decision making is just not leading to good in-game plays. That's really all I have to say. I don't know. I've been talking about T1 for the last week, and it's frustrating at this point to watch them flounder like this when that roster is as nuts as it is.
T1 is a superstar roster that's not killing it right now. Hypoc, is Sonic's similar in a lot of ways?
Yes. I mean, I would hasten to say that there's been an element of complacency on the side of Sonics, and yes, a lot of people may disagree with that, but I think starting off so strong, maybe miss some kind of vital information in terms of fact finding and getting a feel for the lobby and a feel for some of these teams. I think that's something to consider with a few games where Sonics have struggled. I definitely don't think we've seen all Sonics have got to give. I think they have an awful lot more to show us before PGI.S is out. Definitely going through a bit of a rough patch right now, but I mean, the three of us know this is a team that can absolutely bounce back. Some of these guys, I think, are some of the best players at this event in its entirety. So definitely got more to see from them. It's just kind of when they're gonna turn back on, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You know, that makes sense. Like, maybe they did miss out on some fact-finding missions early on with their victory and their sort of domination in the flex. On the other hand, the opposite team, Godspeed, is Na'Vi. Na'Vi has been trying substitutions, switching up their roster. Their manager said, we're just out here getting a feel for it in the first 2 weeks. We get to see them for the first time today. Do you think that strategy is more effective? Is it okay to just accept playing on the last game of day 2 of the weekly survival?
I mean, they've tried a bunch of things, obviously subbing out Orange as well. They seem to kind of get things rolling in the bottom 16 last time around, but we'll have to see. Na'Vi has been disappointing for me, at least, because that team is, again, also very, very oppressive to play against. But they're just not really showing it here. They're kind of struggling in their team fights as well, which is, not really a Na'Vi issue. So I'm hoping they can get it together here. And then as well for Sonics, I mean, I know that they're going to come back as well, as Hypox said, and I think that having a coach there with them as well, Sologic, I know, does a lot of work for that team, and I'm sure he's helping the boys out as well.
So as we go back over, you just got a little bit of a glance at FaZe. That's a team that came in yesterday, Hypoc, and honestly was putting up top 5 performances, seemed to be looking for fights. That's also a team that is going to essentially be joining the new Americas region for PCS next year. What's your take on these guys?
Well, it definitely looks like Fuzz is in desperate need of some coffee. There's about 3 yawns already on screen from him, so that's a little bit of a concern. At least he's still got a smile on his face. But no, but for FaZe, again, I think it's just a matter of when. That's another team that we know what they're capable of. And again, even from their losses, their mess up, so to say, that's a team we know will learn the most from those games. So I'm absolutely expecting them to. I mean, potentially today is the one where they've been on an upward trend, so to say. Today could be the day we see them qualify through.
All right, we'll see who gets through. Game 1 of the second day of the Weekly Survival Series, powered by Intel and brought to you by Toomey, Zowie, and Perrier, is about to kick off. Let's head over to the absolutely nuts team of Porosaurus and Toby, who I promise won't stumble over their words.
Thank you so much, Toffee's first he does you dirty with the facial hair, and now he can't even say your name. Man. What is this? What is this? No, let's get this one going. 6 games coming your way today, everyone. And as you know, Weekly Survival, 1 win grants your seat in the weekly finals. Now let's see how this one will start off. First things first, this plane path, Poro, we've seen better, haven't we?
Yeah, this one's kind of rough. This one's definitely kind of rough. I'm honestly going to be looking right off the bat to some of these road spots where some of the cars spawn to see if we might see some early fighting over those vehicles. But kind of funny that we only see 3 teams dropping on military given that plane.
Yeah, a lot of south side opportunities for teams to try and utilize, but I should see only a couple of teams down there. And I mean, Ensign and Freak of Freaks landing right next to each other in the Novo kind of perimeter. That's a little surprising. I can't really recall the last time we had 2 teams down around Novo. Now let's see Meta. It's just Wicked. He's kind of surrounded by 4 AM, but I wouldn't assume to see anything going on here. And now let's see, where's the circle go? Okay. So,
my goodness.
I thought it has something to do with paper thin being on here to get the wild and ragged circles in, but seems like you and I have that power as well, because this one, while it's playable, there's a lot of transitioning from a lot of teams it has to do, and it's all headed west.
It is. Yeah, that's about as gross as you could expect to get. I think a lot of people were thinking maybe military off of this one, but to be honest, I mean, this is a circle that we haven't really seen so far. I mean, not that I've seen it goes this far west. I mean, you start looking at places like Quarry, you start looking at kind of points north of that, the Invisibles radio tower, that whole area, swamp starting to look a little bit nice. But man, the real story about this one is going to be that Circle 2 shift, right? I think a lot of these guys are trying to figure out right now, are we going to try to go into the north side or the south side of this? Because, you know, it's going to play completely differently depending on where that second circle goes.
Yeah, let alone Quarry in itself. It's just the less you have to transition through Quarry, I feel like the better off you are.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of teams, you see, when we saw it last week, where I believe it was both TSM, we saw ENCE, I believe maybe D8 as well in that game, they all just full speed send it phase 1 or 2 into Quarry. And I was thinking at first, what's up with Quarry? Why do people want to go there? But I think, and it sounds weird, but I think they want to go there because they don't want to go there. They don't want to have to deal with it later on. So they go, let's just get there now. Let's settle down. Let's get control over it. And then it'll be easier for us to leave. Whereas if we have to come into it late, it's just going to be hell trying to either like both get your way in there, get your way through there, and also out on the other side.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if that isn't available, if trying to play that that Quarry or spots around Quarry not really available, then definitely north to south is probably going to be a little bit better, a little bit easier than trying to play this from south to north if it does go hard to the north. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more teams elect to take spots up near that northern side of that circle. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. We got a lot of time still left to play, and I'm actually looking around to see if anybody's looking like they might run into each other, because we've already got some of the far eastern teams already making their rotations. FaZe, TSG already on the move, and Meta is kind of still standing in their way. Sonic's still in Pachinki, so we might see some early combat here if we're not careful.
Yeah, we just reached the 4-minute mark, and I like to think that if you reach prior to 4 minutes, that's you rotating early. If you rotate between 4 and 4:30, that's I'd say pretty regular departure time for most teams. And if you go past 5, that's what I would consider a late rotation. So let's see now. As you said, I mean, TSG and Meta, they're now driving kind of side by side because they opted to leave kind of similar time. But my thing with this circle is there are only so many entry points to it, because you have these big fields that kind of function as a big wide highway for you to go into the circle. If one team sets up on the edge anywhere, I was looking at infantry, they opted to go further west, so that won't be them. But if one team stops here and goes, well, we'll see what comes our way, that could just slow down traffic for everyone. If you have the car crash up ahead, you know, the queue on the highway all of a sudden starts extending.
We got our two teams that did happen to drop on this far western coast, GEX and AAA, running into each other, but it looks like they've managed to avoid any straight-up conflicts right off the bat. Meanwhile, Sonic's already on the move, passing through. T1 doesn't look like they're bombing anywhere, or at least not bombing Gatka without a scout, which we've seen quite a few teams try to do in the past year.
Yeah, we and surprisingly
a varying
enough, I
success.
Guess it's that too. Sometimes, especially I feel like in the weekly survivals, come phase 2, you'll see teams just full on hard commit to areas of the map where under, I don't want to say normal circumstances, because I like to think that the weekly survival is normal too, but under different circumstances, that would have never happened. So I like this. Ragnar trying. Oh, does he actually pop the tire on the US? I think he might have, but I wouldn't expect them to pull up. As I say that, they are headed down south. As a designated driver, Shantian out of the vehicle, starts spraying over towards Meta as well, and seems like that's going to be enough for them to want to leave it. But the vehicle, as you saw, is not on fire quite yet, but it's under half HP, and that makes you maybe a little skeptic going back to that vehicle, making your next rotation in as well.
Yeah, looks like they're TSG for their part just look like they're pulling away. They're Meta gonna post up in one of the better compounds on the southern side. They may be able to do a little bit of gatekeeping here from some of these military teams and some of our late arrivals from the eastern edge. Meanwhile, FaZe and Sonic's Sonic's got there a little bit quicker. So this might be FaZe bombing into a compound that they did not get a chance to scout, and they're gonna pay the price. Shrimsy gonna get 2 right off the bat with the barrel shots. Where's the rest of FaZe? Etsy, oh no.
they were not expecting this whatsoever. It's very rare to see FaZe kind of go into an area without at least scouting first, so them not really scouting coming into this must be a clear telling that they were not anticipating anyone to be around here this early on. 8C is still alive. He has 3 knocked players, so if he can pull out a miracle, he might be able to get them all in, but that nade should be on point, and it is! Adrian, Mime, and Shrimsy all in on the action as FaZe just gets to the swamp and they get taken out instantly.
I mean, we've seen it so many times, Toby, where teams are just not taking the time to do the proper scouting like they normally would, and it's really rare. I think I agree with you. It's extremely rare to see FaZe just kind of just full send towards center without even a hint of stopping to think of maybe to take a look. So I guess they were just anticipating that it would be empty. Unfortunately for them, Sonics already there and clean it up real quickly and easily. And it looks like nobody's there's multiple commitments going on here. It seems like a lot of teams are thinking south, a lot of teams are playing north. So this is just basically gambling at the poker table right now for a lot of these teams. They're just hoping that they guess right.
They've all gone all in, and now they're waiting for that last card to be turned, so we'll see who gets the winning hand, and I agree. And one of the main issues is that a lot of these spots are those compound situations where once you go there, if there are enough teams around you, it's going to get incredibly difficult to leave again, even though the circle might be going elsewhere. There are so many teams right now kind of bundled up next to each other that you can't really untangle that big nut without having a lot of teams forced to fight one another, and I'm assuming that's going to happen at some point soon. And I agree with you. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how FaZe went in early. I just think the swamp area was not on their list of spots teams will take early, and therefore they didn't anticipate Sonics being there.
Well, it's unfortunate, but it happens. And they'll have time to review that and think about that while they sit around and watching this one play out. Kind of surprised to see all of Gatka is just completely empty right now. I mean, nobody is thinking that this thing is going to cut hard to the east, which is interesting to me because we have seen so many hard shifts. Like, hard shifts have just been the story, it feels like, of some of these early circles, and nobody really thinking that this one's going to go Gatka. We'll see what happens. Meta looks like they have a full surround on Afrika. We just saw that. TSM, meanwhile, looks like they're going to pull in, and they've got MCG and 4AM just off to the side. 4AM should be able to get that res on Gavi fairly easily.
Yeah. Easy peasy. That's all it is. And we know 4AM, I mean, we obviously, with a lot of wins coming their way, we've had the chance to see a lot of interviews with them. And some of the other content they've made as well, they say one of the main rules, like rule number 1 when you're a 4AM member, of course, is kill everyone. Don't talk about 4AM. It's just they prioritize getting their players back on their feet. Despite how aggressive they are, they always want to get everyone back. So seeing them practically instantly being there once the knock came in, that makes pretty good sense when you think of how they like to play their game. Circle, in the meantime, Poro has changed, and up to the north we go.
It's still gross. It does end up going hard to the north, but it's still 50% water. And oh my gosh, Hansia just getting picked out by Wicked right there. Nicely done. And Meta, like we said, they had that full surround on Afrika. I'm sure Afrika kind of knew, but maybe they did not realize that they were as surrounded as they were. And as a result, they will lose one now. And looks like they're maybe running into trouble in the further part of their rotation as run through Buriram. Meanwhile, MCG, they're vibing. They are right in the, well, about as close to center as you're going to get.
They're not going to be complaining about this shift, that's for sure. Wouldn't be expecting that. Forever takes down Ibro as he came rolling on out. Actually, it is Forever that rolled on by. Ibro wasn't the compound all along. He's going to go down, and we just saw for a second their attack all around from TSG down towards the south. Only 2 from attack all around were there, and they have an issue now because GEX has been allowed to pull up in between their split. So for Jairus and Gems to get back over towards their remaining 2 teammates further up towards the north, that could actually prove to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, there are no real clean paths to reconnecting their teammates here. Svit and Jankyu, they might be able to do something. Oh, that's dirty. That was dirty. You don't do that to Godby and then get away with it. And they didn't.
They didn't. They lost too.
Unfortunate. Well, looks like Meta's going to pull into the swamp. Sonics have a nice little 2-2 split going on across the swamp here. I think they're going to hear these vehicles pull in. The one thing I worry about from this position from Sonics is that what happens if another squad does what FaZe did the last time? You're going to have Shrimsy and Tig all by themselves over here, and Mime and Win, well, they might be able to support a little bit, but you know, it's the weird sight lines there in that swamp position are going to provide for a little bit of some crazy moments here.
Exactly. While they're next to each other to some extent, it's because if they're fighting on the other side of the next building. Oh, that's some solid parking. While we give the NA guys some flack sometimes for not being able to drive their vehicles that probably, at least we know they can park them pretty nicely. That's nice. Oh, Power, what's that on the screen?
Oh my God, it's a code. I know chat has been waiting for this with bated breath and been very, very patient. And has not been spamming the chat asking for it. FZU4AD5GRTSJ. Go get it. Go get your points. Or what do we? No, it's not points. It's coupons today. It's voting coupons. So make sure you go get those. I think it's 1 per week that you can
Maybe
redeem.
I should get that.
You think so? You should.
Yeah, I have 0 points. I have not been able to guess anyone right so far, and I'm on the I guess I'm technically not an analyst. I'm just quote unquote a caster. So we're not supposed to get those right. Is that an excuse I can use?
I don't think so.
Come on, I don't think so either.
You gotta step your game up. Come on.
But yeah, I'm looking at my big fat 0 in terms of the points I've been able to accumulate on my weekly top 4 predictions. They haven't been working my way.
It's okay. We'll get you eventually. Meanwhile, let's see where this net circle decides to go, because this is gonna be. Oh no! Are you serious? Hobie, that is more than 50% water.
The overlay can't even have the whole thing in. What?
Sia, the center of the circle has to be on land, right? Sia is on the only part. This is the craziest circle I think I've ever seen in Circle 3. Oh no.
That is.
Oh, meta.
That is a pretty good jump out of the vehicle and get the kill on Maui, but what?
Maui almost roasted.
The main issue here is there's so much open space in the field. There's so much open terrain south of where now T1 just pulled up. They just made, by the way, we didn't see it on screen, but they just made a very heads-up rotation, T1 over towards that. Even though it's a small compound, just 2 buildings, very smart play from them. And now, we talked about the attack all around splitting and how it becomes to cost them. Ooh. They are 2 alone versus all of MTG.
Making it happen so far. It looks like they're going to try to get the knocks there. They're not going to try to flush them. No, you don't really worry about that right now. Obviously, you're not caring about points. You're just trying to get these 2 back towards the rest of their team, and they have a gauntlet to get through. And look at this. They're actually going to make it, because Ents and Meta have to worry about fighting each other. T1 hasn't really set themselves up yet. Gex doesn't have a line of sight onto it. Now AAA will be able to reconnect as TSG is pushing them from the south. I think a lot of these teams coming in from the north now, they're just hoping to get kills. They're hoping to maybe survive.
I was gonna say the kills are gonna be great to get, but there's no reward. There's no reward for the kills, at least not right now, other than you've been able to wave some stats on Twitter. Maybe this is all about survival, and no one can survive. There's simply too many teams. Massive credit, but all kinds of hell breaks loose here. Massive credit to attack all around, being able to make that play on down. Hikari 1 HP has to commit to shooting. It ain't gonna work. Kickstart able to find him seen. If they're going full pull-up mode, and they have to. We know how difficult this terrain is, and the next circle is gonna go even further south. Oh my lord, is this circle bad? When have we ever seen 3 teams fight here?
This is absolutely brutal. I mean, it's absolutely brutal. And, you know, Zenith, for their part, did a good job of trailing Afrika, and they just kind of backfilled around them, took a couple out while they were on the move, and now it's just down to EJ, but EJ can still cause a whole lot of problems for them. Meanwhile, Meta, they're still trading back and forth with Ents. Ents doesn't have to push up on this. But every time Meta peeks over the top, they have not only Ents, but they've got MCG, 4AM, Sonics, Gex, everybody in the world kind of looking at them. So they're kind of sitting in this bowl, and if they leave the bowl, they basically risk getting knocked. So you can see, I think they're kind of just making sure that nobody tries to push on them, maybe not over peaking too much here.
One of the things that terrifies me is I know pretty much exactly where the next circle is going to go down towards the southwest.
Oh, it
and
has to.
I mean, oh, well, okay, so straight west. I thought it was going to actually go further south, but there's so much of this circle over by where Sonics are. That's a big open field. Southwest of where TSM are, just straight south of T1, that's a big open flat field with no grass in it at all. There's just so much of this circle that is, I mean, I want to say half of it you can't really use for anything right now.
Yeah, it's disgusting stuff. I mean, Sonics, for their part, you got to give them credit realizing where the circle pretty much had to go. They never really left their edge position, so they're still kind of hanging out using that ridge line, which is so strong. But I mean, like you said, you see what they have in front of them. It's just nothing but open field. They have some vehicles, as we saw earlier, and all their vehicles should be 100% safe. So when the time comes for them to send, they should have plenty of cover to make a little vehicle for it. Meanwhile, everybody coming from the south now as Longskirt. This is not a great fight here for SDK.
No, I don't think anyone would want to have to fight here, but that's what we're given with the circle going the way that it has. And I like that Sonics didn't opt to leave early. They say, you know, technically we're still inside the circle, and right now Burram, because they have the hillside still, are going to hold us down. So let's just wait and see if they have to move the next circle in the meantime. GX getting neighbors visiting. Wally Bear tries to pull up, but it's actually going to be Yankee from the other side, getting him down. And Sills, and once again with the mid-air action. This time, well, not him flying. That was Peng, and he goes down.
Weren't many options available to TSG, but sending it right down the gut doesn't end up paying off there as you see them go down. Meanwhile, Attack All Around, who was trying to hold them off for the better part of their compound there. They're still alive there in the southwest. And okay, here's what we were worried about. The Buriram pinch from the north, infantry from the south. This was just looking horrible for STK all along. All they had was smokes and rocks to work with. And this is just feels like a matter of time before this is going to get wrapped up here.
It all depends on where their 9 spots, Luke, and Uncivil above. And now one has been seen. I believe that's Uncivil. Yep, taking damage already, so at least they know where he is. And with the burning vehicle, you have to expect 9 to be aware. Actually, it's going to be connected from above. So just when you thought Luke might have a chance, here comes Burram from above and slaughters Luke within seconds. And now let's see how Infantry managed to do this. They finished off yesterday with a 19 kill. Third place. So if there's a team that really feel hungry for a win here, that would be Infantry.
They are absolutely feeling themselves right now. They are on the roll. They've decided, you know what, we're just going to go back to that kill hungry, push, play the edge. Just the style that we won PCS 1 with, the absolute dominance. And then so far, they've gotten a lot of kills for it. Haven't gotten the win just yet, but you got to feel if they keep that going, it's only going to be a matter of time while we wait and see where this next circle is going to go. Most likely, I got to figure it's okay. Yeah, there you go. Can't be that. It can't continue to be brutal for that long.
I was going to say, could you imagine? Phase 5 straight back into the ocean. Oh, that would have been something, but no, we'll give the
great for
players
Zenith.
some. Well, not kidding. That would have been pretty amazing for them. But in a situation where everything's going against everyone, at least we give them a little more time to think about what they want to do. Only issue is, especially for Sonics down towards the east and everyone else having to go to these fields, the hill is still in on that south side, and that means that field becomes incredibly difficult to try and take control of, because as long as the team has that high ground position over you, proning out in that field, just it's not going to be possible. You can go behind the cars, but they will be able to see you over them. So they really can't approach that field all that easily yet, unless if this fight on the south side starts escalating.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to be the winner out of the south side here. I mean, Infantry, SDK, Buriram, they're all, I mean, it's going to come to a head here eventually. And then you also have the north side, but I mean, when you start looking, oh, what happened here? Buriram opening it up, and now Uncivil. Okay. All right, Civ, we see you. Get your 4-piece, son.
3, yeah. Pretty damn impressive. Holds off on his own. Again, not sure if it's going to lead to a victory, but pretty impressive performance nonetheless. Sonics, they said, no, you know what, we don't want to play that field. Let's cross all the way over. Yeah, exactly. As long as the hill is in, as long as GX still have the compound, they had to cross all the way through. Knowing the fight was going on the south side, they chose the right time. So now they've all made it here, but the victory is far from sure for them. They have a fight with Meta just over the top. And now, at the same time, towards the water, we have Zenith and Multi-Circle Gaming squaring off on the hills.
This is going to be rough stuff here for MCG. It's even going to be harder to hold for Zenith, as now 4 a.m. has to go somewhere too, and that Ents spot is looking pretty tasty. As Shilu going to find Diggory. The throwables are still coming out. Now, here's the thing. Ents still has a whole bunch of utility.
Ooh.
I don't think Meta has much of anything. Meta sent everything they had down at Ents, so Sonics has been able to just kind of hang out there. Meanwhile, 4 a.m. is just landing grenade after grenade. This was always going to be rough for Ents here. I think it's just down to Tixu now. And it's just going to be a matter of time before those smokes go away.
Vehicles are great for cover, but it is also like hiding behind a big red barrel. It will work against you at some point, especially if you don't have anywhere to go. Tixu trying to stay put within these smokes, down to 40 HP, trying to bandage his way to security. And you can see this is also detrimental how early teams had to rotate. He's down to just 13 bandages, no first aids in the meantime. Zenith want to take control, but it ain't happening. Tank holding off finds 2. Let's see if he can take down Kickstart as well. No, not gonna happen. Down he goes, and this might give time to Zenith to get the rest up. I'm sure Shinboy should be able to get back up on his feet as well if he can crawl into the circle fast enough. Rough, that is, sorry.
And there goes Tixu. And actually, Sonic's creeping over there and stealing a couple of those away. So Meta looks like they tried to send Silzen over the top to maybe peek around the smoke, and he ends up paying the price. You can see they still have some Molotovs going, but look at the damage Sonics has taken here. Both my man Trimsy on a 1 HP. Somehow staying alive and holding it down as Forever. Summer, I think you're about to have a nicely cooked present thrown your way here. Oh, look at this Meta.
Yep. They crash into the compound. They're sitting tight. Note to self: don't put suppressors on your DMRs. They will be visible sometimes through those walls. And Summer, despite being flashed, actually wins the trade just to be kicked out of the server by Kickstart immediately after. So down he goes. And okay. So Zenith up with 4 still. They did manage to get the final res up on to Roth. They will be able to cross back on over and now actually get themselves into the circle from the north side, because both the two teams that were up there just took out one another, and now there's space. Bururam in the meantime, while they crash in the compound and they're stopping in the field, I'm seeing a full speed forward crash, and here comes Bururam.
GEX, you got to be a little bit better about holding that. They only had, I think, one person shooting at them on the way over, and nothing really hits. They do probably still have a lot of utility to use. Nobody has really tried to send it into this compound other than Meta, and you can see Meta makes it 3 in with no hassle whatsoever. So GEX trying to just turtle in here and stay alive, but now all of a sudden that defensive posturing is proven to be put them in a little bit of a difficult spot here. Yep, go ahead. Throw that parking brake on. No, Vard!
Tries to get the vehicle to stop and pays the price. Vard finds him with the bolt down from the south. There are 2 guys in the shack. TSM has been forced to play there for a while now since they lost their Wookiee and Iroh. So it's just Vard and Miraku sitting in a shack. And now, some NA on NA action here. Zenith. Well, they have to push forward. They do still have the dip that Meta was in before. I'm not sure if they realize, but they should be able to take that and play over the top. Now nades, though, are going to come into full effect. 1 knock on each side so far, but seems like all the damage is being done over towards Sonics right now. Nice nade to follow. Kickstart continuing to do a ton of damage.
It's just, this is a really hard fight for Sonics here. The lines that Zenith is able to get, and the fact that they still have so much utility left. Meanwhile, Roth is going to find Tig. This is just Sonics getting picked apart piece by piece. Zenith is looking really, really strong right now, as they have been fighting throughout this entire game, and they're going to fight their way to this spot, and they're going to have the whole north to themselves here as soon as they can take out last player Tiggleton.
This brings me straight back to I'll hold the thought, just because I don't want to jinx anything. But this brings me straight back to their win in Yasnaya on Erangel in week 2. They were playing like as soon as they started pushing, as soon as they started aggressing and playing together, they were playing it so incredibly well. Now let's see, it's not over and won just yet. We do still have people on the other side. Shinboy underneath the car finds Tiggleton. It's just Crimson left alive. He finds Poonage. Don't allow that flush to come in. Hold your player. Make sure to keep him alive. Now spots one on the other side, but it ain't gonna matter. Kickstart is there over the top to get the kill, and continuing to keep 4 alive is Zenith, and they're really, really doing a great job at that exactly. In the meantime, Bururam does fall on the south side of the city, and that's just make things easier for Zenith as the circle just went towards them.
And they still have that bowl. They still have that meta bowl that they can work with. I mean, T1 is in kind of a rough position. They've got to make their way across the street, but where do you go? I mean, I guess you can kind of go up to the base where Zenith is and just kind of pray that maybe they don't have much utility left, which I got to imagine they got to be sitting pretty light, but they just managed to kill off what's left of Sonics. I don't know how much they had, so we'll see. Zenith still feels like they're in a pretty strong position, and now AAA has made their move. Where are they going to go? Oh,
Play the hill outside, right? Yeah, they have to stop there, but it's
yeah.
gonna be, but it's gonna be hard for them. I mean, now they have to worry about the hilltop while also at the same time trying to deal with T1. But I gotta say, I mean, for a team that I've been giving a lot of hard times for being too passive, I love the fact that they rotated in here when they did. They knew that T1 hadn't rotated yet. Now they might get to beat them on the rotation. Let's see. They try to come over the top. They try to take the play up towards Zenith, and they just will not have it. Zenith, I do not know what you had for breakfast today, guys, but I want some of it because you are wrecking all of these guys. They have no place to play from whatsoever.
You're looking so strong, and that grenade will take out Aqua. Adder's going to be down next. AAA doing a little bit of service for Zenith as well. They pick up a few kills, but as he said, I mean, AAA, they're in a great position. They have this whole western ridge line that they can play around. Zenith is really kind of their only problem. You've got the two teams that are in compound, Meta and Gex. They don't really have to move at all. It looks like Gex might be doing a little bit of repositioning. And Meta is just sitting inside holding angles. That's all they have to do.
Zenith currently have an equal amount of kills to all the remaining teams on the server. There are 4 teams left alive, 4 still up, and that's what surprises me the most here. Zenith, because it hasn't just been every single fight they've had to, they've taken that have been in their advantage. It haven't been easy fights for them. They've had to cross the road. They've had to fight off teams on the hills. They had to push into Sonics, who also arguably is one of the stronger 4v4 teams on the server. And they just dealt with them, and they did so without taking any casualties. Very impressive to follow. They are low on utility, but as I say that, there should be anyway enough crates and corpses up in those dips up there. They can scramble together at least something.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous for the Zenith boys on this one, as the dip is out. They have to do something, and it looks like. I mean, it looks like the option is going to be to fight AAA here, and I mean, AAA is in the winning spot. That is the winning spot.
Yes.
And I think Zenith has put 2 and 2 together here, and they realize, okay, we got to take this fight and win this fight if we're going to win this game.
Do the math, make your predictions. Who would you rather fight? And I think it makes pretty good sense that they take the fight to attack all around, because this is the situation where we've seen attack all around kind of fall off, with the exception of the very nice push out towards Liquid they had, which got them their win on Pachinki last week. We haven't really seen a whole lot of 4v4 up close dominance from attack all around. This could change though. We'll see, because this is a pretty good one. And right now it has Zenith pushing forward.
Look at him. Oh, this is clean stuff. And look at Kickstart. Does he get them all? Yeah, he does. 17 kills now for Zenith, and they have taken what it could arguably be considered the winning spot. And oh, look at this 5-head play from Roth. He knows that they need to expect this push from Gex. The wrap around. This is Gex is already over there to try to hold them off here. Meta's just going to hang out in their building. That's all they have to do.
As much as I like Roth making the hold, they also really love the fact that GEX pushed out the way that they did. They know they have Meta, as you said, inside the build, and they did not want to have to deal with that, expecting to become the third-party victim themselves. So if things go in the way that GEX wants now, they can hold one guy with CC here, looking towards the west, while they together with Zenith, will deal with Meta. I like the idea from both teams, but as you said, Roth instantly reading that play, that could arguably be what wins Zenith the game, because had he not been up there on the hill doing some sort of suppressing fire in that direction, calling that play, Zenith could have had easily 2 players taken down while they were looking away.
I mean, they could still be in trouble. Meta should leave this compound. Meta should try to wrap around. You can see Kickstart is positioned to kind of keep an eye on Meta, but Meta is just content with holding the inside of that compound for the time being, and just waiting. I'm not sure what it is that they're waiting for, but I guess they're just hoping that maybe GEX and Kickstart, or not Kickstart, but Zenith get involved in a fight, and maybe they can then make their move out. And now GEX, for their part, realize that Zenith has read them like a book, so now they realize, okay, the better fight is to try to go and take Meta.
Yeah, They want to be. I mean, GX right now are doing everything to force meta to make a move, but they're holding their hand. They're waiting. They're not doing anything, and it makes sense to the extent that meta wanted to push out when GX and Zenith started fighting, but now they waited so long. Now this play is just making it becoming much harder. They have the blue on the back. They're up against the wall. It's going to be so hard for them. GX are here, and Zenith could not wish for anything else. They will get yet again a third-party opportunity to push forward. Now first one to fall is going to be Sparking. They're caught in the corner. I don't see a world where you can get out of here alive. It's going to be so incredibly difficult. They took their time. They waited too long, and this should be the downfall of meta. Yes, there they go, and now it's just Zenith and GX left alive. 4 versus 1.
And it's down to just CC. As we said, we knew. Oh, CC will find one. No, Roth will clean it up. And is that a 22 kill game?
What?
For Zenith. Look at Roth. He doesn't even believe it.
They're mind blown. 22 kill chicken dinner. That is utterly insane. We talked about it yesterday. Infantry pulled off a 19 kill game, and we were like, oh, that's impressive, but I mean, their teams here are so good, we don't expect to see that again. The very next game, Zenith comes out and hits a 22 bomb and brings home the chicken dinner in a game where kills don't even matter. They make this. they make the server look silly. They were fighting from the disadvantaged positions in so many of their engagements, and wow, what a game!
That just does not happen at this level of PUBG. In competitive PUBG, 22 kill games are so rare. Screenshot it, chat, because this is not something that you will see very often. But you know, we have to give credit where credit is due. Zenith played that to perfection from the late mid to late game. Every call that they made was the correct call. Every fight that they took, they were absolutely on point, hitting every shot. I mean, that is a team that was feeling it right there, and that is a scary thing to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's something you would never expect to see from anyone whatsoever. When it happened to infantry yesterday with the amount of kills, DA had a day similar in the first week. You go, okay, that's impressive. Okay, and if it was gonna be anyone, this team could be, because they were aggressive. I think many put Zenith on maybe the bottom seat of NA teams making it through to PGI.S, and they rolled over Sonics. I mean, okay, so Oathane playing, they aren't here. They outlived STK, and just 22 kills. That's insane.
I mean, it was the perfect formula, right? You're playing from the north side. Anytime you see kill games that high, it's usually a team that's playing from the edge, and they're just kind of chasing things in. They end up getting a good spot, and then they get a couple of good late game shifts. And that's exactly what happened to Zenith. And, you know, to be fair, they held off quite a few pushes. I mean, there was the Afrika Freaks fight, there was the push on the meta, the push on the Sonics, the push that was coming from attack all around in T1. So it's not like they were just kind of sitting back and resting on their laurels. No, they took it to a lot of these teams, and by God, they came out on top for sure.
And that's one of the big things to me, because normally when I see these high kill games, I go, okay, so how many kills did they get where they weren't at risk themselves? Like, how many chances did they have to just find flushes where other teams were fighting each other? I can't think back to one engagement where they were just sitting tight and got to shoot at other teams. They were, as you said, up close. They were in people's faces with every single kill they got. And I have to mention this again, they did all of that. They got all 22 kills without losing a single player. When has that ever happened? That is... I'm completely mind blown. Zenith, you've just taken my #1 NA spot off of this game alone. So many individual engagements happening, and they do it well there. That's so impressive.
Well, let's hear from the boys themselves, as we are now going to throw it to an interview with the whole team, and I can't wait to hear what they say.
매치에서 승리한 팀은 제니스였습니다. 신보이 선수와 인터뷰 나눠보도록 할게요. 승리 축하드립니다. 혹시 그거 아시나요? 제니스가 2등을 가장 많이 한 팀이더라고요. 오늘 치킨을 드셨는데 마무리를 위해서 어떤 걸 중점적으로 연습하셨나요?
So apparently, Team Zenith has the most second places so far. So in order to win the chicken today for this match, I want to know what you prepared, how you prepared.
We practiced our movement in the pre-game lobby, just kind of vibing out. 저희가 특별히 한 건 없었고요. 이제 경기 시작 전에 그 로비에서 이제 따로 저희 팀만의 그런 움직임을 연습하긴 했습니다.
옆에서 팀원들이 지금 웃음을 참지 못하고 있는데 그동안 2등을 많이 하면서 혹시 뭐 어떤 피드백을 오갔었는지 팀 분위기는 어땠는지도 궁금합니다.
So while we were having all those second places, I want to know what went between you guys, how you talk it out, or what went between you guys so that you guys actually worked it out to win the chicken.
I mean, it was mostly reviewing our games and going back, analyzing both our macro and micro mistakes. A lot of it really just comes down to how you practice and how you want to perform after.
이제 저희가 대부분 중점으로 한 거는 저희가 했던 플레이를 다시 돌아보면서 크고 작은 실수들을 이제 고쳐 나가려고 노력했던 게 큰 도움이 됐던 것 같습니다.
오늘 너무너무 저는 좋은 플레이를 보여줬다고 생각하시는데 인원 손실 없이도 공격적인 플레이를 하셨어요. 개인적으로는 AA를 과감하게 정리하러 가실 때 그때 뭔가 긴장감이 넘치기도 했는데 오늘 특별하게 잘 된 점이 있다면 어떤 부분이 잘 된 것 같으세요?
It was great to see you guys being aggressive while keeping all 4 players alive, especially when you attacked AAA. You were just crushing them, and I just want to know what went well during the game, especially.
Well, we landed on the east side. We had a good play into the west, where it was very easy to control our edge early on, and then we kind of just ended up fighting everyone on the edge. I think our utility and our communication were really important in that game. A lot better than previous games for sure. I think that's a big difference.
일단 저희가 랜드마크가 동쪽이었는데 자기장이 서쪽으로 뜨는 바람에 힘들 거라고 예상을 했지만 저희가 서쪽 이제 가장자리를 먹음으로써 거기서 이제 좋은 플레이를 가져나갈 수 있었고 확실히 이번에 달랐던 거는 저희가 그 투척류도 정말 많았고 그리고 확실한 건 그 일단 소통이 정말 잘 됐었습니다.
네, 파이널로 직행하게 되셨습니다. 제니스를 응원하는 많은 팬분들이 계신데요. 팬분들께 한마디 부탁드릴게요.
Any comments to the fans?
Be better than yesterday.
특별히 할 말은 없고요. 어제보다 더 잘하겠습니다.
네, 승리 축하드립니다. 인터뷰 감사드립니다. 자, 이렇게 해서 제니스 팀이 오늘 첫 번째 매치에서 파이널.
Well, I can tell you, I'll be a better fan than I was yesterday. That's for darn sure. After a game like that, Zenith advances with 22 kills, gentlemen. And as far as I can tell, Avengers running through the record books, CD's running through the record books. As of now, OMG had 20 kills as the record at PGI 2018, but that was with 80 players in the lobby. With 64 players, they got 22 kills. That's 37% of the lobby, and Kickstart set a personal kill record for an international event with 11 of his own. That was an insane game by Zenith, and I cannot get enough of it. And I think you said it best, Hypoc. At the end of that match, you had, imagine all that for $2,000.
Well, yeah, something like that. No, but what a fantastic performance. I mean, this is a perfect example of kind of being like, you're in a position where you got to chase circles, right? Again, the stars kind of align for a game like that to even become possible. But the fact they kept 4 up and they looked absolutely fantastic in those team fights. This was the only moment where I thought potentially things were going to go amiss for them, to be honest with you. There was a chance here for Zenith to die on that beach.
There absolutely was, but I mean, they fought off of it and they were able to stay alive. And the other thing as well, Pac, was the fact that they had to fight in circle as well. They really weren't just sitting in one spot the entire time.
They fought for everything.
Yes, they absolutely did. And then, towards the end of the game, I mean, taking the fight with Sonics immediately and just cleaning up the rest of the circle, that 1v4 from Kickstart, I mean, it wasn't even a desperation. It wasn't even a desperation 1v4. He's like, I'm just going to peek over this hill and kill every member of AAA. I mean, it's pretty much what
it's a confidence play. It's like momentum. It's like, boys, we're already here with 14 kills. Like, do you know what? But like, let's throw something on the wall, see if it sticks. And it was actually crazy to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, the T1 was very late to that party, obviously, as well. We'll talk to that later. But yeah, I think all of us were just smiling ear to ear than NA fans, because Zenith has been truly playing their asses off. And to see them come in second place, and they've had some blunders here or there where, they've taken a compound and then completely misplayed defending it. Regardless, I think Zenith absolutely earned that kill. I think this is massive for their confidence, and I'm so glad that they moved on the way they did in this fashion, because that's going to really propel them in the weekly finals.
Yeah, I mean, you say we are smiling ear to ear as North American PUBG fans, but the reality is I think a lot of us are smiling ear to ear as just PUBG fans in general, because that was insane. They didn't just sit in a spot. They fought. They took on some of the best teams in the world, some of the best players. I just had some stats sent to me. They said there were, of the last 30 kills in the game, Zenith got 18. Of the last 20 kills in that match, they got 13. And of the last 10 kills in the game, they got 9. They never stopped. I mean, at the end of that match, Hypoc, it seemed like they were the only team that wasn't playing like they were terrified.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was a number of scenarios there that would, I mean, borderline frustrating to watch, to be honest with you. But like I said, the stars aligned. Zenith were able to just kind of find a path through. And I say path, the path was riddled with teams and players.
Right.
But it was just systematic. It was just like, pick the next team. We're pushing there. We're going. Yeah. And they did it, right? I mean, the only time they really stumbled was, like I said, the beach. And then that fight with Sonics that kind of, I guess, halfway through kind of broke down. It just kind of stopped. There was a little bit of a stalemate. Damn. So yeah, Kickstarter leading the way with 11 kills. Roth with 1,095 damage. That's just. There were some other insane numbers here as well. Like CC 971, Tank with 740. Like these are insane, and then Roth's just like head and shoulders. That's actually a crazy game.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up their path to victory. And traditionally in the survival rounds, it has been the path of least resistance results in the chicken dinner, Godspeed. But this was not the path of least resistance. This was literally, driving down an old dirt road on your spare tires. They were bumping and bruised and recovering. But a lot of it was doors were left open. Let's talk about T1, right? We brought up T1 earlier. It's an excellent team, but they could have taken Zenith out when Zenith was fighting Sonic. So I want the two of you guys to talk to me about T1 and making the most of opportunities or failing to do so. I'll start with you, Godspeed.
I think I speak for everyone in the virtual green room when I say that we were incredibly frustrated. I mean, there was a massive opportunity, especially when that fight first broke out between Zenith and Sonics on the other side of that hill, where Buriram had also crashed, and we heard fighting just in the compound. And the two-story glass just on the other side. So Gex was busy fighting Buriram as well as AAA shooting at them. And then you had Zenith fighting Sonics, and T1 was just sitting there on the west, just kind of vibing. They just weren't doing anything. And they had such an amazing opportunity to drive up with all those teams distracted, but they just sat. And then the thing I think that frustrated Pocket and myself the most, I believe it was Adder, drove his car about 5 yards, stopped, got out, and just stared at the
smoked himself.
The lack of leadership on that team, I think, is very troubling at this point, and it shows because that very arguably could have been a T1 game as well.
But the thing for me that frustrated me even more than that was like, yes, on some kind of like weird circle shifts. I mean, they were there for 3 circles, pretty much. Sure. They should have been the team with the most information on any of the teams that appeared in the kill feed. So they should have known. I mean, they should have had vision of the meta reposition back down to the 1 story. They should have had perfect knowledge of who it was fighting as soon as Zenith and Sonics were in the kill feed. I mean, at this level, that's borderline unforgivable for me.
And then if we go a little bit further, let's talk about second and third place, Gex and Meta Gaming. Gex had the final compound for a incredible amount of time, and Godspeed, they just kept letting people move into their real estate. They were like landlords with free rent signs everywhere.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Gex is the fact that they allowed Meta to get in their compound in that 1 story long, and because of that, they actually couldn't fan out and clear that hill with Zenith on it the way that they wanted to. And because of that, them and Meta were just neighbors, and they just rotted there as Zenith basically farmed that lobby. And so, yeah, that hesitation, and we all said it. I mean, it looked like, at the very least, I mean, Gex was just kind of playing scared. They barely roamed out of their compound, and then Meta, for all intents and purposes, they fought to get there. They were kind of just stuck, but yeah, it was just a case of a lot of hesitation, and it looked like nervousness, I'm going to be honest.
It may have been. All I can tell you is that Zenith took home the win with a record-setting performance to advance to the weekly final. Did they capitalize on the failures of other teams? Perhaps. Did they get a little bit of help from bad decision-making on the other side? Most likely. but that's what makes PUBG different. The best capitalize when they have the chance, and Zenith never said die. They were tired of being a second place team. You know, you heard it brought up in the interview. They said it's time for us to make a play, and they came out and did it on the back of Kickstart with 11 kills. An incredible team showing, an incredible individual showing. Let's see who can do it this time as we go into game 2 of what has already been an amazing day of PUBG powered by Intel. It is the heavenly voices of Toby and Porosaurus with the call.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Desk. And yes, it is I, Porosaurus, and it is he, Mr. Toby. And we are now on Miramar, and we have a new team in the lobby, Mr. Toby, Digital Athletics. And we see our DA boys on the move. Looks like they're already in circle. They're looting up just off to the east of Chumacera. Sonic's just off to their north. Now, T1 is already hanging out in Los Leones. Now, we've seen a number of circles, a disturbing amount of circles, arguably, and inside of Los Leones during this tournament.
Yeah.
And this thing is, you know, fingers crossed it doesn't, but do you think that this is something that is playing in these guys' minds as they see this circle and they're thinking, okay, you know, do we send it? Do we make the city call?
I think, and I hate that it's a fact, but I'm very convinced that circle tendencies is something that play into, if not all players, then at least the coaches and analysts, because everyone wants to have that itch, right? If there's something you can figure out that you know about circles like doing this, other than just, of course, the phase 4, phase 8 things that we all know about. If there's something you think that you know that can give you an edge and it turns to be true maybe once or twice, you go, okay, let's just keep on... Let's keep on believing that, and then maybe you figure that there was just coincidence and it wasn't a thing after all. So, but I would think with the amount of circles, Poro, that we've seen go into Los Leones over the course of this tournament so far, I wouldn't be surprised to, I don't want to say everyone, but see more teams up to commit center Los early than what we have seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, no matter what you play, whatever kind of thing you do, anytime that there's even a slight bit of RNG involved, there's always going to be superstition. And you know, I even fall victim to it. I think that we tend to see clusters of similar circles more often than not. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing go Los Leones. But that being said, I also don't really expect a lot of teams to maybe send it, but I do expect a lot of teams to be very, very close to Los Leones, maybe playing right around the outside edges, something to where if it doesn't go that way, they can get out. But if it does, they already have a pretty easy route to get to wherever they want to play.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, it's... now again, I mean, as I said before, I
dinner bell. I mean, that's probably one of the easier cards you're going to shoot somebody out of right there. So, you know, Yonley trying for something there, doesn't end up getting it, unfortunately. So, but you know, you like to see that thought process. Exactly. So,
yeah, exactly.
We'll see what happens for the Gex boys as they make their way through El Pozos. STK doing the long wraparound towards Vitamar in the southern side of this circle. As you pretty much hit the nail on the head, Toby. All these teams electing to go south of Los Leones because if it does cut up to the north, it's looking a lot better to try to rotate from the south side into Los Leones than it would be to come from the north side through Los Leones down to the south.
Really everything except east, because when you look at the topography around the city, it's so open with the warehouses and all towards the west of Los. You can always find a somewhat doable approach angle, whereas if you come in from the east, you have literally 2 roads leading into the city. Everything else is chaos, right? So we'll see how teams opt to play it. I wrote it, take a bullet to the head, and he'll have to heal on up. Still rocking the shotgun. I like it. Usually we see him drop the shotgun for a DMR when he's in the open, which I would have thought he probably would have wanted to do now, but maybe he didn't have time, or maybe he didn't find what he liked. So the buggy, the pump action is back to play fire once more.
It's kind of good to see if you're a DA fan, Mert with the Iron Sights Mini putting work into it. HP.
If you could do that with an iron sight, imagine what he could do with a scope. Yeah,
I know that's a pretty good shooting off the bat. So we'll see. We'll see what the DA boys decide to do. They got like you said, they're all kind of hanging out on that western side. A little bit of a 2-2 split, not too crazy, too fancy. T1 going for the. I don't know, man. I really don't know. That's a lot of spread between your players in the dead center of the circle.
Yeah, I mean, you call T1, and I agree with you. That is a wide split, and I'm looking at FaZe as we're kind of panning over them right now. We have first FaZe here. We saw Uba and H further up towards the north, and you actually have Gustav even further south, all the way down towards the shoreline. And again, similar to what you're saying with T1, it's a wide split that could easily be punished, but I'm thinking even more so because of the survival format. And we know how teams, they just want to bang center, they want to put up a tweet, and hopefully that gives them a blessing. I'm looking at you, Machine Gunner, and then hope that the circles go their way. And I can respect that, because what would you, I mean, as much as I really am impressed with Zenith's 22 kill win, I'm sure if they were like, if someone asked him, what would you rather, sit in a compound for 27 minutes and then get a win, or have to run around and fight 8 teams in order to get that win? Like, the path seems a little more doable with sitting in the compound when all that matters is that chicken dinner, right? So for a FaZe, I'm glad to see Gustav leave now, because teams are going to be coming. Teams are going to be trying to claim these compounds in the center earlier than what they normally would, because they don't want to have to take all those fights.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, all you gotta do is look at the games. I mean, how often have we seen a team win because they had a solo player that was just managed to stay alive? Like, it's not something that happens very often. So I mean, I think, have we even seen maybe once or twice? So even the insurance policy argument is a little bit sus to me. Yeah. But you know, if you're playing for a win, I just like keeping everybody more together. I mean, you can go for the 2-2 split for sure in circle 1 and be able to get away with that, but trying to split it up with the 1-1-1-1 is just I get the argument, but it seems a little bit on the greedy side. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
It is greedy, and you have to, I mean, in order to maintain those splits, you have to have a clear line of sights between the positions you're in, and B, a very good opportunity to disengage as you please. Now, yeah, I'm seeing the 50-50. Okay. It could go into the city. It could stay down to the south. And you can see right now, if we split the circle in half, north to south, almost everyone, except for 2 teams and a Bird Ram player, on that south side of the circle. Space for new teams to get in on the south side, and we still have a few teams that haven't really gotten inside that new circle area. So the 4-way splits are now going to be 2-way splits, and teams are going to try and kind of leapfrog into positions off of that.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that you know, nobody, as it is that kind of 50-50 circle still, where it hasn't really cheated that it's going to be heading towards Los Leones. You still all these teams in the South are thinking, okay, well, I mean, we've got a good position here. Let's kind of stay where we're at because this thing could still cut south of the city. But you have all those teams on the edge, like SDK. They find a way in. They're going to have a nice little compound on the south side, but they really need that circle to go south. 4 a.m. Meanwhile, Meta, GEX, they're TSG. They're still having to kind of squish their way in because I doubt really that any of them really want to do the long wrap back up to the north side. So, if this does cut hard north to Los Leones, it is going to be absolutely brutal.
Well, now that you said it, Poro, we know how these curses work, right? Also, maybe
True.
as you said it with the fear in your voice, but you had an evil smirk all across your face as you said it too. Maybe rubbing your hands a little bit there as well. I know how you are, Poro. I see you. Let's see, DA. They're still on the west side of the circle, and Sonics, they're gonna come in, say hello, grab themselves a compound there as well. And the thing is, this makes sense to me because even though you go, but it's so far in the edge, why would you commit to sit there? Because there's the unplayable mountains, at least according to Phase 4 Circle, around Los Leones. Should this one go just a little west, there's a good chance next one could go even further west. So this is one of those situations where it actually kind of does make sense to play west, just expecting that everything except for East Hard Shift will work your way.
Yeah, it's a dice roll. And speaking of dice rolls, here's a code for you to try to go and enter in as fast as possible to try to get your coupon before everybody else does. So PNNYKG3KW3PV. Go, go, go. Go enter it as quickly as possible. And maybe you too will get another voting coupon as we sit and wait out what is sure to be a very, very interesting Circle 3.
It's the thing is always Phase 3 is also the size difference between Phase 2 and 3. Like Phase 3 becomes so small that we saw it last game, right? Where it just shifted out to the west. That a hard shift it just becomes so incredibly brutal for teams to try and have to deal with. I like how Meta is playing this one right now. Keep Wicked down towards the south, out on the west side of the circle, with the remaining players up towards the northwest, just so they have some sort of a spread, some sort of a path they can kind of rotate down. They're each their own checkpoint right now on that rotation path, saying you can rotate to me, we can rotate further together. You can see them here as they come in from the west. Now let's see if it paid off. Will we go west, or will we go straight into the city? Well, that is actually going to be straight into the city because the south side mountain is getting shit. Oh no.
Clearly my fault.
No.
You already put it into everybody's head. Now it's my fault. Now that this is going to Los Leones, it's all on me.
No.
But look at, okay, you gotta, oh man, if you could see, if you have the map screen open, you've got to see this because all the Skittles are on the move. They are all making their way through. Now the one thing that a lot of these teams have working for them is the terrain down to the south of Los Leones makes it to where you can kind of avoid the majority of big fights here, but at the end of the day you still have to be going somewhere, and trying to come in, everybody coming in from the south side of Los Leones are all going to be looking at the same compounds. DA already finding out that T1 to go through Matrellis is going to get taken out, but Smash, it looks like he'll survive just barely. No, Buriram will do the duty.
This is so wild. When we look at the map stream right now, it's like the root kits that threw a rock in the ant pile, and all the ants just coming rushing over to fix the hole in the ant farm. You know, the rock is the circle, and all these players are the ants just scrambling to make their way over towards the city because they know, or at least anticipate and expect, the circle going up towards north, up towards Los Leones, with the next shift going away from the south side mountains. DA, 2 players here. They lost 2 already, and now TSM are knocking on the door here at the what do you call this building in this city?
Oh man,
the temple, the monastery? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've actually never heard a call out for that building.
I don't think I have either, actually. It seems like maybe a university. I don't know.
I would say
I mean, any of these things are probable. I mean, I could go with mosque. Looks like it could be it.
I don't know how many mosques there are in Mexico, but yeah.
It's gotta be a few. I mean, there's plenty of churches.
Yeah, well then why couldn't we? Yeah, I don't know. It comes to think of it, I've never heard a call out for this building. Well, let's hold that thought for a second. Miracope does get around, find one. Code Mago finds him, return, and now Mert able to do damage on TSM as well. Woogie, desperate spray around the side, tries to find one down, low on HP, and they will get the flushes on. And I liked you could see the desperation in his spray there. He needed to buy time for his teammates to not get flushed, I should say, by DA. Get in there, force the attention from Mert over towards him to enough of an extent that
Well, I got to give a shout out to the boys that came in from the long rotations around to the north. Freaka Freaks, Meta, Ents, all looking pretty good here. AAA was already kind of hanging around Los Leones, thinking that it may go this way, and you can see their position already as they have maybe spotted out some of the Meta boys. This is actually, it could have been way worse as far as circles go. The hard shift to the south is going to be nice.
This is me actually, because I thought the south side of the hill where infantry are sitting right now would be shifted away from, but sometimes the thing is with the next shift that can go anywhere, so we can head straight east up on top of that hillside there, and chaos would just unfold once more.
I mean, one of the stronger positions in this circle, completely unoccupied right now, but it looks like Ifty might be heading that way. That hillside just to the south of Los Leones, just kind of off to the east of that little refinery where FaZe is hanging out. But you can see, I mean, all these teams that are still hanging out inside Los Leones. This is basically just hoping that maybe it cuts north again and we don't have to get involved in fights. We're just praying that we can just keep hanging out for right now and holding our own building. Sonic's on the move, trying to make it in from the north side. Looks like they've got Meta right below them. Meanwhile, STK, we're hanging out on that south side, and this is actually looking pretty good for them. They've got nobody really near them, but they've got 4 a.m. in their sights, and EJ gonna find Godby through the smoke.
Have all these fights happening on the outskirts of the city. We'll see if they'll be able to maintain the space they currently have to play around. It's gonna grant them cover for now, but having to run into the city at some point soon could be deadly. Let's see. Sonics, in the meantime, have called the bluff on Meta. They're pushing forward. STK Luke finds a flush on 2. But now the fight unfolds again here, and it's Sonics pushing forward. Silson goes down, but they have players inside the building to deal with too. But now Mao Yi from afar takes down Sparking too.
Yeah, they've got GEX on the south side of the street that has a vision onto this. Now TSM is also creeping over that way from the mosque, as it were, and you can see Iroh taking shots at this as well. And Wicked hanging out on the rooftops as his team gets picked to pieces right now. He is the last one up. You can at least hold this rooftop position for a while, I think. Oh, look at that, Leo. Find Shrimpsy through the window. Ooh.
Oh, Shrimpsy just exactly gets so in. Oh, in the end of it, Hansia will find Wicked on the roof, trying to stay up there. And I thought he was going to be able to sit up there for a little while too, but Hansia with a bit of distance to it, 150 meters, able to find the knock above, takes him down. And now let's see next circle where we're going. I said we could go up the hill,
I'm telling you, infantry,
head to the mountains.
Infantry, that spot where they're holding is so damn strong. The entire southeastern part of this circle, really. And he's seen so many teams win from this position on circles like this. And if infantry plays their cards right, this could be setting up really, really well for them. I gotta imagine that there's other teams though that are looking at this and seeing that same win condition. So infantry gonna have to hold off the rush here, for lack of a better word, and